Chapter 18. Those of the Wolves. Cyrus. My journey to this point had left me both utterly ready to sleep and entirely unconcerned with where I chose to do it. A locked door just made it even easier for those protective instincts to fall away, and not long after Tristan had left, I curled up in the least dirty chair that I could find. I was tired enough that I didn't dream, I didn't fret or worry, I didn't see visions. I just removed myself from conscious existence for a little while. Conscious existence returned rather rudely, with the explosive thunder of hammering fists on the door. "Open the friggin' door!" Tristan yelled. I readjusted my brain as the hammer fists continued, each knock setting me back a second. Forest. Weird animals. Wolf people. Tristan! Ah! "Hey, I'm coming," I said, scampering towards the door and fumbling with the lock. I flipped it the wrong way twice somehow before I finally jiggled it open, twisting the handle just as Tristan yanked it, practically tearing my shoulder out of its socket as I tumbled out into the hallway. Tristan wasn't laughing now as I stumbled out onto the floor, as he was currently smeared up against the wall with Ava? And utterly unconcerned with the outside world. I vocalized sort of limply, but there was nothing really to say, and I wasn't sure if Tristan or Ava would have paid attention if they had heard me. So instead I looked away in uncomfortable silence as they smushed together. After a little bit, I scooted over to the other wall and took a serious interest in the stone and woodwork of the tunnel, while Tristan and Ava continued their business a few feet behind me. Now that I looked at it, the carving was sort of beautiful in its simplicity, seemingly hewn straight from the roots and crafted, and suddenly Tristan stepped away from the wall, lifting Ava up into his arms without ever disconnecting from her, and walked into the room. The last thing that I heard before he kicked the door shut was a grunt that sounded far too close to "Stay here" for me to comfortably ignore it. And so there I was, left sitting against the wall, suddenly cursing the fire of the world's ending for enhancing my hearing, and hoping that the music would pick up again. Oh God, please. "Well, Cyrus, this is pretty emasculating, to be honest." "I don't think I asked your opinion," I said. I was still tired and yawned. "Have you ever asked for my opinion?" "Maybe a few times," I said, crossing my arms. Now that I think of it, I regret all of them. "Well, would you like my opinion now?" "Sure, C. What's your opinion on the situation?" I said. "Well, Cyrus, that's pretty emasculating, to be honest." "Thank you, C," I said. "You are nothing if not consistent." "So, who do you think the big man is?" I didn't get much chance to think about the question before the door from the great room exploded open again, bringing with it a crowd of people drunk and wreathed in smoke. There must have been at least 8 of them, none quite to Tristan's height and build, but they were accompanied by 4 or 5 wolves, which seemed perfectly dangerous enough to me. They found the first door empty and filed in, paying me no attention, and then they were gone. I tensed up, not really sure of what to do, and ready to run if I had to. Although again, Tristan had told me to "Stay here." There was a chorus of cheers and laughter, and then a shattered glass from somewhere behind the door, and then it slipped open, with 2 wolves striding out into the hallway and settling down very elegantly. It only took a few moments before they noticed me, heads cocking up and turning my way. They made no movement towards me, and the 3 of us simply met eyes. I was the first to break our little staring contest, peeking towards the door where Tristan and Ava were still busy. Oh God, I could hear so much. I knew Tristan had a bit of a dirty side to him, but Ava... Oh God, what exactly did she want him to do to her? I forced myself to turn away from the door, face on fire, and almost bumped snouts with the 2 wolves, who both seemed a little bit interested in them and a little bit interested in me. They were only a step away and far larger up close, with noses twitching just inches from my eyes. There, I said, slowly putting my hands in my lap and sitting so that they wouldn't think anything dangerous of me. Standing on all fours, they loomed over my seated figure, and their mixed gray and tan coats were flecked with dust and spilt beer and spots of what I hoped was juices from cooked animals rather than blood. And also their paws were slightly sticky from walking bare-pawed along the great room floor. The slightly larger one, a female, began to take an interest in my jacket pocket. I still had some of Bram's jerky, which was damp from my dip in the river, but smelled just as good. The wolf's mouth yawned open, revealing a fierce maw of teeth that told me that even though this was a kind request now, it didn't have to be. I reached inside my jacket, pulling out the damp jerky and holding it out. The wolf snapped it up, ripping it out of my hands, tossing it into the air, dropping it onto the floor, and pouncing after it again. They were, after all, still wolves. Ava and Tristan were getting even louder, and I slapped my hands over my ears to try and block out at least a little bit of the explicit detail coming from behind the door. One of the wolves flopped down next to me, happily leaning against my leg, while the female continued to chew on the scraps it had won. Nice. We're in with the wolves. I guess that was better than being out with the wolves, and with a stray hand I cautiously patted the female wolf's side. She let her tongue hang out in a semblance of a smile, and at the thump of her tail on the wall I continued. Ran you? You absolute slut, a voice called, and then broke out chuckling. He barely got the second part out. At least Renzo has some decency. The wolf in front of me turned her head to the side, tail still thumping on the wall. One of the men from before had returned to the hallway in a cloud of smoke, coughing once as he let the door closed. Like all of the people of the wolves, he was tall, but he was a little skinnier than most I'd seen. Still rippling with lean muscle, of course, just less of it, and practically gliding across the floor as he made his way towards me, speckled red coat and pelt swaying. Surrounded by both wolves, I made no effort to move, mind racing to come up with some sort of greeting. The man arrived and squatted down next to me, scratching at Ranya's neck. His pupils were thin, down to nearly pinpoints, and his eyes were wide open, flickering all over me with incredible speed as he took me in. With a deep breath he inhaled, taking in my scent like the others had, but fell back coughing out more smoke and landed flat on his backside. When he finally surfaced from his laughter, his eyes were filled with tears, but still open wide, and he had a cheeky smile on his face. Well, you ain't nothing I ever seen before, he said, coughing a few more times. Well, I knew that. Boy's been talking. What are you? A Valgardian, I said. He squinted his eyes. What's that mean? He asked. Not really sure, to be honest, I said. Not from around here? Those flickering pupils took no rest, bouncing back and forth across his eyes as he looked at me, then around, then back to me. Yous can say that again, he said. He's one of the weirdest smelling things I ever smelled. Hey, a voice called from down the hall. Stop messing with the new thing. I ain't messing, the man next to me shouted. I'm just looking. Ranya like him. Ranya likes everything, another shouted out. Hey, shut up, the one next to me shot back. All right, though, I'll see you later, weird thing, the man said, and he stood up with a whistle, followed quickly by the wolves, leaving me alone again to sit by the wall. The music picked up slightly, and I was actually able to drown out a little bit of the increasingly aggressive sounds on the other side of the wall. Focusing even more on the music, I let my eyes drift closed. I was far too wired to sleep, but on a whim, I decided to reach out with that new perception. I hadn't had much time to sit in place and just kind of mess around with it yet. I took a deep breath in and out to the time of the music, slowly releasing the tension all throughout my body. I hadn't been any semblance of relaxed in ages. But here, I was close to Tristan. Too close by far, actually. Who was the third of the Moondogs. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I was also surrounded by hundreds of wolves and people that had seemingly let me in. It felt, I don't know, safe? Relaxing even more, I settled into my little spot. There was a natural rhythm to each sensation, one which I noticed first with the sound of the music. There was a little rise and fall, a little ebb and flow, a melody. But as I paid attention, I noticed that it wasn't just the music. All those other senses had their own little rhythm. I started to try to feel it, try and sense it. First, I took in everything around me. The floor beneath my feet, the temperature of the air, the scents drifting by, even the steady sounds of passion and delight coming from the other room. They all had their own little rhythm. They all had their own little song. And as soon as I saw it, as soon as I knew, it all kind of faded together and I could see more. I started to reach out a little further with that sixth sense, stretching those senses out left and right down the hallway. For example, in the next room over, the scents and the old smoke all billowed out into the hallways. Then, further into the hill, I could see where old wood of the hallway met even older earth and stone. I listened and I paid attention, and in time I could understand those rhythms too, and let them all fade into that thumping melody, all coming together. I took a moment and then stretched even further, down the hallway to the closed door leading to the great room, where the scents and smells turned, faded, and jumbled, like a colorful mass that was bubbling behind a thin screen. Occasionally I caught little signs of humanity and music and food and wolf, but it was blurry and hard to track. I tried to see beyond that door, but it was too many degrees of separation to actually see it clearly. It was like I got an impression of an impression, a half-painted scene of a badly told story of something that was already hard to describe. Come on though, I could do it. I took a deep breath in, determined to make sense of that great room. I just knew that if I had enough discipline, if I had enough sense, I could feel those rhythms. I could let it all fall away and see more. If I just listened well enough. I was so close to understanding the colors dripping through that room from beyond. Then my screaming lungs demanded air, and I gasped. I had taken a deep breath in, but I hadn't exhaled. Dang, I muttered to myself. I took a few deeper breaths as I tried to recapture that rhythm. The song had changed now, and this time it was slower, easier to fall into. The sensations around me faded quickly, and I fell into that rhythm of forces that stretched beyond me, all around. I was feeling it now. I drifted deeper. There was a movement that passed through everything, a pure ebb and flow that wrapped in and around and through all that there was, including my heart and my body, which was filled with a small, gentle little light. I stretched further with my perception, and I began to glimpse that great swirling dance that went on not only in the great room, but far beyond me. Rather than just scents and sights and sounds that Cyrus could feel, I was starting to feel the swirling colors that were near and far, out where the doors gave way to the rowdy energy of celebration, out into the hills where the coolness of the earth whispered of something old. I was starting to sense out beyond the party, to where the proud life that sprung from the earth met the hunger of the night and the cool breeze of the sky. And then, out beyond them, among the great darkness of black and green, a light shone out. And then more than a light. There was something coming. Fast.